Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's Body, Soul, and Spirit podcast. We are going to talk about shame today, a topic that is familiar and a topic that I've just been studying, learning about, and trying to understand it because it's one of those core beliefs that can go undetected, unnoticed, yet it shows up in more than 36 symptoms. So I want to dive in and just first define shame. What is shame? Because it's one of those things that when we have it, it prevents us from really understanding how to resolve conflict. It doesn't let us resolve conflict in a healthy way. Sometimes shame lives so deeply embedded in our belief system, it goes undetected, and then it shows up in certain behaviors. Shame is really a belief about yourself. And that leads us to a feeling. And it feels almost like this sense of humiliation that could rise. It feels almost like there's something wrong with you. Shame is really a belief about yourself, a belief that we begin to believe about ourselves, that there's something wrong with us. It is and does create a negative emotion, but it originates in our lives as a survival, if you will. That's how we survived. Shame is important to detect, and there are different kinds of shames. There are different symptoms to shame, and it could really lead us to things that are very problematic. It doesn't allow us to believe good things about ourselves. It becomes very problematic when it becomes very internalized inside of us, and it results in a harsh evaluation of who we are as a whole. It's the inner critic that tells us that we are worthless, that we have no value. And it doesn't necessarily pop up in a core belief at the forefront of our minds. It's sometimes so internalized, so embedded. It was our survival. It's something we believed growing up. It's rooted in our attachments with our parents, with things and how we grew up. And sometimes shame can overlap with other things like guilt, and it can really be a nuisance. It could be a difficult belief system to try to unravel, to try to unknot. And as a result, it can cause so many symptoms. So I want to talk a little bit about shame today, and I won't finish today, obviously, but it's something that when it gets stuck in our core belief system, it's a belief system that just resounds this inner critic so loudly that as a result, it leaves us feeling a certain way towards ourselves. When you think about shame has so many symptoms. You can feel unappreciated. You can feel used, or you feel like you're being taken advantage of. Some of the symptoms of shame can include a feeling of rejection. You feel regretful. You feel inadequate, or like you have very little impact. Those are symptoms of shame. Or you have this fear of looking dumb, stupid, or you have this fear about what other people are going to think about you. You have this feeling that is just overly sensitive. You're worried about what other people think of you, or you worry that you aren't treated with respect, or you're just wanting to have this last word, or you have this feeling that you can't be really true to yourself, or that you really have no identity. That's how shame translates when it's become internalized. You can't share your thoughts. You can't share your feelings with other people. You can't be real because you're afraid of being embarrassed or what other people are going to think about you. And as a result, we really don't get the real you. We get this other person you. Or you're worried about failure. That's why you become maybe a perfectionist, because you're worried about failure or something, this thought that others are going to think about you a certain way because you failed, and failure is just so loud. And so as a result, you become a perfectionist. It's this feeling like you're such an outsider. Have you ever had that feeling where you walk in a room, but you're really an outsider? You're different. You're left out. That's shame speaking. Or this feeling of suspicion towards other people, and you just can't really trust other people. That is shame. When you think about, shame, it's this feeling where you just want to shut everybody out. So you start to withdraw. You hide. You don't want to be the center of attention. And when you feel shame, you start to look down instead of looking at people in the eye. You keep your head low. You feel like you're in fight, flight, or freeze. You're unable to move. You maybe cry a lot, and that's shame at the core of your belief system. You're hiding from yourself, and you're hiding from others. Now, there are different kinds of shame. There are different categories of shame. There are different behaviors and symptoms, safety behaviors as a result of shame, because we don't want to perhaps confront it. There are different behaviors to repair shame. Sometimes when you think about certain kinds of shame, like this type of shame that we could call it a hot response, it's always on the defensive. You lash out. You're an angry person. You attack. You deflect attention even from yourself because you are typically impulsive. And what is that? Well, that's shame at the core. So you have to be on the defensive side. And that's why you lash out. And that's why you get angry when you feel attacked. And you want to deflect the attention from yourself. So maybe you blame, maybe you shame. And there's other types of shame. Sometimes to cope with or to even hide shame, to make yourself maybe, to hide it, you make yourself feel small. You try to avoid being the center of attention. And so you don't share your thoughts, you don't share your feelings, but you're really concealing yourself. And that's you making yourself small. Oh, no, yeah. And you make yourself small in conversations. Oh, yeah, no, yeah. And you just hide from others, and you let others stand out, and you just hide without sharing your thoughts or your feelings. And that's typically a behavior to try to conceal shame. And we conceal ourselves as a method of self-protection. Or perhaps you have a safety behavior to avoid shame, or you don't want shame to be discovered. And this type of shame is a behavior. And typically when you see that and as a safety behavior, if shame is a safety behavior, you'd probably apologize all the time. I'm so sorry. Or we cry a lot. Or we just try to avoid conflict. And so people who have a tendency toward being very avoidance, they tend to be people who want safety. You see them and they just kind of deflect, they avoid. Or maybe you have this type of shame where it's a behavior that tries to repair shame. So you soothe yourself. Maybe you try to excuse yourself. You maybe apologize for other people. You're just soothing yourself. This might include things like you do things, right, maybe you forgot something and you try to perhaps blame somebody else, or you excuse somebody else because you're trying to soothe yourself. When you think about all these different types of shame, shame can be chronic. This means that you have been feeling like you're not good enough for a very long time. See, shame has a voice, and shame says, you are not good enough. Shame also can make us feel this sense of defeat. We might feel shame when we experience a failure. We did something wrong, so now we feel this sense of shame. And when you think about shame about yourself, this is a feeling that you have towards yourself. You feel inferior. You feel less than. And that can have a long-lasting effect. Shame, when you look at it, it's the sense of disappointment about yourself. You feel inferior. You feel unnoticed. You feel this thought, this belief, this core belief. It's at the core of your life that you are not good enough. You are not worthy enough. And that leads to low self-esteem. It leads to a lack of identity. It leads you to a sense of no value. And it becomes a stigma that you have about yourself. When you've internalized shame and you turn it inward, that's typically coming from a childhood experience. You feel unworthy as a result of something. Sometimes toxic shame, as it becomes so internalized, this is a thought that you have internalized inside of you where you inherently think that something is wrong with you. And it becomes a part of your core identity. Now, there's a lot of causes of shame. There's a reason why shame came. There's a reason why shame makes you feel like something is wrong with you. It could have come from a childhood neglect. Maybe you were neglected as a child. You weren't tended to your needs. And as a result, maybe you went through trauma. And as a result, shame became internalized. Sometimes it was so much self-criticism that you've done over a period of a long time, and that inner critic has criticized you for a very long time, or it's judged you for a very long time, or you judged yourself, and that has internalized shame. Maybe you didn't live to a high standard that you set for yourself, and maybe you failed, and now shame took root. Or there's this feeling that you're flawed, you're inadequate. Or maybe you were a victim of just this bullying for a long time. Well, shame took root. Or maybe there were these expectations that people had for you, and then you didn't meet those expectations. And as a result, people see you and they see the failure. That could cause shame to be internalized. Or maybe there was rejection from others. Maybe you're rejecting yourself. And maybe that rejection from others, or maybe that relationship that you had, maybe it was a dad, a mom, somebody rejected you. It was a weak relationship. Maybe you've had relationships in the past and they were strong, but the relationship starts to weaken. Shame can take root. Notice that. If you've ever had a relationship that used to be strong and then it starts to weaken, you got to watch shame, because shame can be internalized. So as infants, all infants actually experience shame without ever necessarily internalizing it. It's, in a way, the shame response is normal, it's natural, right? We have embarrassment or we feel humiliated because we did something, but it can become a problem. It has an impact if we internalized it. It's got a negative impact that can result in a lot of internalized messages that shame begins to tell us. It makes you feel like you're flawed. It makes you feel like something's wrong with you. And as a result, you become socially withdrawn. As a result, you carry the stigma about yourself. That could lead to a lot of addictions. some kind of addiction, like maybe alcoholism or drug addiction, or just a lot of spending and you just don't know how to take a good grip on spending. It could be a food addiction. It could be all kinds of addictions. And very well, it's the message of shame. It may cause you to feel always defensive and shame others as a result. Do you tend to shame other people? When somebody maybe tries to say something to you, you're already on the defensive side. And as a result, you'll shame other people. Well, that is the message of shame that's been internalized. Maybe it led you to being a bully because you were bullied. Or maybe it caused you to inflate your own ego, and because you're hiding behind this really belief system about yourself that you don't have value, but it's really hiding. This is what leads to a narcissistic personality. It may lead you to even physical and health problems. It can lead you to depression or sadness. This internalized shame can leave you feeling empty and lonely and very worn out. And it can lower your self-esteem. And it makes it hard to trust other people or to resolve conflict in a healthy way. It can make it feel hard for you to really just love yourself and not judge yourself harshly. It could lead you to a perfectionism or even just overachievement where you try to compensate for this feeling of shame. So you are an overachiever. You try really hard and maybe you succeed and you're really good at certain things and you're just this overachiever. But is it really coming from shame? Maybe it's caused you to people please and you just want to please others. You don't know how to set a boundary for yourself. It may cause you to avoid talking because you're afraid to say the wrong thing. Or maybe it caused you to become compulsive or excessive behavior. And now you just, overwork and you overexercise, or you have excessive cleaning, right? And you set these high standards. All of that is shame. They are shame behaviors. And it creates a vicious cycle. And when you have those internalized messages of shame, it could really lead us to anxiety, to this depression, this sadness, this low self-esteem. There's a difference between shame and guilt. Guilt is generally something that we've done wrong. And when the two coexist, it could be very detrimental to our own mental health. I want you to notice shame this week. Is there shame that's been internalized as a result of childhood experiences of not feeling safe? Is it showing up in the way you see yourself? Notice it. What's that inner critic telling you this week? That inner critic, that voice that says you're stupid, you're dumb, you're worthless. That inner critic that says it's better for you to just hide than to show your true self. Notice the shame part of you. Did it get internalized? Has it been there for a long time? And with a lot of gentleness, I want you to confront it. I want you to address it. I want you to notice it so that you can start to do some shame work. That's the journey I've been on. I think as I do more and more studying on shame, I find that we all carry a part of us that could be that inner critic. And we've all been either shamed or shamed others. We've all done it. And we didn't maybe acknowledge it, or we didn't do work around it. It is my ultimate goal to really start to do a work around shame, because I am recognizing that shame could really cause so many behaviors that don't lead us to a healthy self. So this week, I want you to notice shame. Notice the voice of shame. What is it saying to you? Remember, it's a core belief that you're not good enough, that there's something wrong with you, that you can never add up. That is the voice of shame. And rather than ignoring it, rather than internalizing it, rather than avoiding it, I want you to notice it today. I want you to notice it this week and start to do the work of healing.